So I guess this old hag just turned 90, and there was all sorts of celebration about it. I guess they're like going on a world tour and celebrating their 90th birthday all over the place, drawing in all sorts of money. And this one's very similar to Neil deGrasse Tyson in that they're a religious leader, really, if you think about it. And later, it's admit that this person is an icon, and these people, they serve as idols today. They are idols, and they are not to be worshipped. And if you know the truth about this place, it's really easy to not worship these clowns, deceivers. But if you're under their spell, these are certainly people that are idolized. And God said to have no idols. Do not ever idolize some human. And because who knows what they're really like. And thank God for opening some of our eyes to the types of deceptions these switch skeletons on the world stage are constantly up to. And this one's a part of the ape hoax. And so let's get into it. I mean, you can tell that this is an old man, first of all. That is a male skeleton. And the long robes going to the idea of some sort of religious authority figure. The Bible's full of criticisms of people who walk around in long robes. But you can see the male hips here, the male hip structure. When you're traveling 300 days out of the year for work, a birthday is just another day, even when it's your 90th. For Dr. Jane Goodall, today's milestone birthday is another opportunity to spread her call to action. It just comes with a celebratory glass of whiskey and vegan pizza. And the 90, why such a big deal about the 90? They are obsessed with gematria and stuff, and it's just a way to make a quick buck. You know, much ado about nothing. But something about the number 9, I think of the Beatles 9 thing, is 9. I'm not a gematria expert, but 3, 6, and 9 happen a lot. And I think the number 9 in particular has some sort of connection with Satan. Leave it in the comments if you know. And Tanzanite is just an interesting connection. I guess this Goodall character always is wearing a necklace that not right there, we'll see it later, a necklace with a black stone in the shape of Africa, and it has this rare gemstone Tanzanite in it that I guess is only found in this region. But this was an interesting looking into Tanzanite and how it's like formed in the hinge of these geological folds. Some of these crystals, it just makes me think of they were born out of cataclysm, out of when the earth was like molten from like biblical. You know, the Bible talks about Jesus coming down and hills turning into wax and Sodom and Gomorrah type events. Or maybe how some of these crystals are formed, I don't know. Goodall, who rose to fame as the world's foremost primatologist, has become a beacon of environmental activism. I'm just going to skim through some of these. Something about mercury here. Stuff, does it say here? This was talking about mercury. Brazil, mercury and gold mining. Stuff like this, is it part of the article because they want to hit those key words talking about mercury? And I think a lot of times they are just bringing stuff up because it's concepts that they like to talk about, alchemical concepts or astrological concepts. It just felt like this mercury thing was brought up on purpose. Goodall has a partnership with an allegedly ethically sourced jewelry brand. A lot of these times, these clowns are just there to sell something. And they're just actors. They're acting a part. And some of them, this is like a Bill Nye situation. Neil deGrasse Tyson, totally in the same thing as Bill Nye, totally in the same thing as Jane Goodall, where they're actually an actor playing the part of an environmentalist, and they just push it. They know. I mean, I want to be this environmental TV sensation. That's the goal. They're not really like a scientist. They're in it to be the figurehead to be on TV. They know that that's their end goal, is to be on the TV and to be used as an idol, is what they get used as. Totally different than like Bill Nye. You should just understand the difference between people like Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson are very, very different than like if you actually go to school to become an astrophysicist. You don't end up being a Bill Nye or whatever. You end up working at some university and doing research papers and having students underneath you. You go into academia. You don't go on the TV. Anyways, not for sale, however, is the periwinkle-colored tanzanite pendant Goodall is wearing, gifted to her by Brilliant Earth. Man, getting some sweet throwbacks for getting involved. So, and yeah, it seems really clear to me Jane Goodall's just trying to get money. It's a money-making operation these days. Got a turtleneck. Got to hide the neck in your turtleneck. A black pendant in the shape of Africa with a small tanzanite stone over Tanzania, where she first began studying chimpanzees in 1960. Chimpanzees are a hoax. They are fursuits. That's a male skeleton, or skull in particular. And just to mention some features like the brow bone and the sloping forehead and the large square jaw and the low angled back ears are all masculine features. And the hands with the large exposed knuckles that go straight across, it's very masculine. I did this because it's Getty Images. Getty Images is involved in some shady stuff. And that was like kind of a joke back in the transvestigation era. That so many of the most busted looking images come out of Getty Images. Like they're documenting the deception, what these guys are up to. That's some weird looking Q angle on the guy on the right. The body, look at it. That's a body like a Coke bottle on the right. And then Jane Goodall. The vast photo archive is hidden inside a cold, heavily guarded limestone mine. Over 11 million Getty images are on ice near Pittsburgh. Oh, this was something interesting too. May 11th. So 3/11, March 11th is like a really obvious. They do a lot of things on March 11th, and a lot of interesting articles tend to be posted on these dates like that because 3/11. I mean, there's a band called 3/11 for a reason, because 3 times 11 is 33. But you know how the months are all messed up. Like October should be the 8th month, but it's really the 10th month. So another date that you see a lot is May 11th, because if you do the math, May should actually be the 3rd month if October is the 8th month and September is the 7th month. Then May is actually the 3rd month of the year. So you see May 11th a lot of times too. And back to Jane Goodall. And what fuels Jane Goodall's sense of hope? The planet itself. So there's a lot of planet programming going on here. Save the planet. It's always been a big part of the world stage, is reinforcing that planet idea, because that's kind of the center of their deception. Talking about Gaia, Mother Nature worship here, saying she, her, about the Earth. The Earth is a creation. It's something God created. I don't believe in animism, that objects have spirits. That's like pagan stuff, I believe. The indomitable human spirit, the people who tackle the impossible. I think words like this, when they talk about stuff like this, it's like chimpanzees should be impossible. They're not. It's not a real creature. So when they say like bringing magic to life or making the impossible possible, I think it's references to stuff like that, like how they do things that shouldn't even really be possible, but they're just tricksters. And so obviously it is possible, but what they're doing is they're making things true in people's minds only, when there's actually something else going on. It's a deception. Like, they've made going to outer space possible, but it has to be a CGI thing. It has to be in the ISS underwater. So that's why I think they talk like that sometimes. Goodall is frank about the climate crisis and the pervasive sense of doom. Of course, they're quite right. We have really destroyed the planet, and we're getting to a point of no return. I think that the elites understand about. I think the whole history reset that people have now discovered, I think that's another truth that people have just known about. And there's probably all sorts of references in the media to the fact that this place gets reset. The saying, if you don't understand history, you're doomed to repeat it. That was such a brilliant observation that I read in a comment one time that, oh, that's like a threat that they're saying, we erase your history and then we make you repeat this cycle over and over again. And maybe that's where people have strong connections to the ideas of reincarnation, and that comes up in a lot of certain religious thoughts. I don't believe in reincarnation at all. I think everybody has one life to live here. But those feelings, I think, may be so strong, this sense of deja vu, could come from the fact that this game that they're playing out is something that they do over and over and over again, and they like to reset the realm. I hate that word, but, you know. Okay. With the specter of the 2024 presidential election, trying to tell people to get out there and vote. And I think that there's a couple different things going on there. Voting never really accomplishes anything, first of all. People who get stuff done, it's because they go to get it done. And the world still may fight against you, and the world's really unfair. My mind just goes to stuff like, have you ever heard of, sometimes there's like a stairway that needs to be built, and the government is just like, nothing's happening, and then some guy just goes out there and pours the cement in one day. But then sometimes that person gets like attacked by the government. They go and like sue him because maybe it doesn't follow OSHA regulation or anything. But the point still stands. If you want something done, you got to just do it yourself, and voting for it doesn't really change anything. You may put yourself in the crossfire, though, getting involved with things, and that's just part of life. So this is just another clown on the world stage. Brilliant Earth. This was an interesting article. Female photographers, they always got to make it about their fake gender. Who are the people in charge of the, like, women movement? It's all these inverted skeletons. A lot of times it's just straight up dudes. But, you know, castrati, too, are most often the ones in charge and talking about this all the time, always making it out to be like, well, I can do whatever I want because I'm a woman. It's not supposed to be such a big deal. You are what you are, and yeah, there are differences between men and women, but it's very divisive what they do, and a lot of times it's just because they are swapped genders. They're the ones that come up with all of the stupid, like, you like trucks, you're a boy thing. You put a bow in your hair, you're a girl. Like, they came up with these ridiculous social constructs of what's a guy and what's a girl. And they're also the ones that are screeching the most loudly about we got to break down the social construct. There's no difference between men and women. Like, they are always playing both sides and screeching the loudest. Whereas most humans are just like, yeah, I'm a guy. Or, yep, I'm a woman. It's just a fact about who I am. But the fact that I am a woman, I don't like leave my house and I'm like, I'm a woman, I'm gonna do that. It's just a part of who you are. Anyways, I don't know if that gender relations rant made any sense, but my point is that they're always the ones like, why did you got to make this about a female? Why does this have to be about female? And then they're not even like a normal female. It's so crazy. 90 wildlife and landscape photographers. And so I was just going through, I was like, oh man, how many BS. The top photograph is a fake animal, and it's so obvious. Oh, here it is. Okay, that's not a real animal. That's clearly CGI. Bad CGI. And they pass this stuff off as photography, which is crazy. A photography and filmmaker that works for Nat Geo. Yeah, Nat Geo is just like Hollywood, no different. Anyways, Jane Goodall says go for it. Because, yeah, Jane Goodall went for it, and we'll see, really shook up the game. when it comes to these fake animals. She had his own idea of what chimps should be, and it really was the beginning of, hey man, let's have them use tools. And nowadays it's like there's a zillion videos out there of, you want to see a chimpanzee use a saw? Sure. You want to see a chimpanzee start a fire and roast a marshmallow? Sure. Whereas back in the day when Goodall was just getting started, they were much more serious about this deception back then. They weren't so cuckoo clown. We have jumped the shark. People understand that we live in clown world now. They kept the cat in the bag back in the days, and they were more restrained with their hoaxes. They weren't so outlandish, but Goodall kind of started the beginning of the end of having them use tools. I thought this was kind of a funny article that proves that chimps are a deception. It's not a real animal. If chimps were a real animal, they would certainly be Jane Goodall's favorite animal. But nope, more of a dog person. That, to me, is just like hugely obvious when you know the secret. If chimps were actually real, they would be Jane Goodall's favorite animal, period. But nope, Jane Goodall's a dog person. So they had some weird dog salute thing. This is the last article I'm going to go through. She's on the road for 320 days making money. Raising money, that's the first thing right there. She'll be raising money for her nonprofit organizations. Honk honk, clown world. How can people write that in a sentence and it actually... How can you raise money for a nonprofit? All these nonprofits are giant hoaxes, and trust me, somebody's getting rich off of the donation monies for a fake animal. Roots and shoots. A 90-dog salute. It was very strange. Dogs are her favorite animal. On and off rain briefly lifted just as Dr. Goodall arrived, which one attendee, Jeff Horowitz, that's, oh man, the last name, attributed to a phenomenon called Jane Magic. Does this feel special? Or does that feel special? Oh, it's amazing. There's 25 Jane Goodall Institutes in different countries, and they all have a birthday event. They can make money. That's, again, what's being talked about here. This dog thing, I think she's talking about this dog thing was the only event that she actually looked forward to this whole year. How do you think it would have gone if it had been a 90 chimp salute instead? It would have been a disaster. I wouldn't have come. I want to get your thoughts on what just occurred on the beach. I will confess that a dog salute's not something I'd heard of before. It's never been thought of before. Oh, so revolutionary. Oh, man. You know, it didn't go as they planned it. What they planned was at the end, the dogs would file past me and we'd have a photo. That was the salute. But the rain came, so actually it was much better the way it was. I don't think anything like that's ever been done. Never. Well, there's nothing new under the sun. I'm sure 90 people with dogs have gotten together before. But, you know, self-importance off the charts here. And... what I think's interesting is, didn't we just read something about, oh, but I thought Jane showed up and magic, the rain was gone. And to me, because this is the kind of thing that normal religious people would attribute that kind of thing to God. And this happens all the time where it's going to be somebody's wedding and there's storm clouds there, but they pray to God and it's a beautiful day. And we usually give thanks to God for weather, things like that. And this just happened we had such a beautiful Easter, and the Saturday before Easter, it was just like gorgeous weather. And you thank God for that kind of thing. You don't say, oh, Jane Goodall's magic came and took the clouds away. But what I think is hilarious that it still obviously rained. So her magic must suck if the salute still didn't go to plan because it was raining. But then they'll still pretend like, oh, Jane Goodall's so magical that the rain stopped. Nope. And there's also a commenter. I had a commenter. I haven't seen him in a long time, but she said that every single day on her son's birthday that it would be a beautiful day, and how that was a gift from God, that her son's birthday, no matter what, every year, beautiful day. So yeah, the rain came anyways. The world knows you best for chimps, but I know you want to talk about dogs. Here's some story about dogs. Oh, but here I am registering at Cambridge. So upper crust, castrati, waltzes into Cambridge and just starts wanting to do it her own way. She wanted chimps to use tools and stuff. And the old guard, you got the Red Lodge, you got the Blue Lodge, the Old Guard, the Red Lodge. They like to keep things the way that they used to be. They're the conservatives. And the Blue Lodge like to push the boundaries and shake things up. So Goodall is classic Blue Lodge, shaking things up. Chimps shouldn't be named. They shouldn't be numbered. You can't talk about their personalities. You can't talk about them having brains capable of solving problems. And you certainly can't talk about them having emotions. And yeah, I mean, I don't... It's just because they were trying to keep the hoax reasonable. Back then, the conservatives were trying to not get too crazy with the hoax. They were trying to keep it more secretive, I believe, because I see exactly where Jane is coming from in this scenario. It's silly to not talk. If there were such creatures as chimps, of course they would have personalities. I mean, rats have personalities. As Jane is talking about here, dogs have personalities. So why wouldn't this creature have a personality? And it's because they were just being more conservative with it, and they weren't ready to unleash the full ridiculousness that is orangutans using a saw and chimps lighting a fire and roasting marshmallows. It hadn't become full-on Hong Kong clown world at that point. Talking about Rusty, there's just some weird... It's about to get weird, and so we already saw stuff about Jane magic, and oh, when Jane Goodall comes here, the rain gets lifted. She's telling this sappy dog story, and then down here, they couldn't have... Oh, it was as though he was sent to me. And did I skip past some other thing? Maybe it was in this Cambridge thing, talking about... no, maybe it's later. Whatever. She talks about, like, too many things happened that seemed like they couldn't be just a coincidence. So just all of this types of talking where the real interpretation is that, you know, God's will, that there aren't such things as coincidences. When things go a certain way, it's because God is in full control, and that's how it works. You can see God's thumbprint if you look at actions in life. Something that I think about sometimes too is how, like, almost everybody out there will have one or multiple stories of near-death experiences, and that becomes statistically impossible. That almost anybody out there has like one or more near-death experiences. The mortality rate of humans should just be off the charts with how often near-death experiences happen. And so that's another way that I can think. It's not a coincidence that you just barely almost died and you survived. I think that angels are working overtime keeping people alive down here, and I believe in miracles, and the Bible says that there's angels that will stop you from dashing your foot against a stone. And that's something... are you ever walking and you kick something really hard, but you just keep walking as if you didn't even stumble it, and you're like, wow, I don't know how I didn't just totally eat cement right there. I personally believe that angels are watching out for us. Anyways, sent to you by who? Because she just told some sentimental dog story. Oh, it was almost as if this dog was sent to me. And then this is Goodall's response. Sent to you by who, that dog? Goodall pointed up. Have you guys... I mean, anybody who looks into the celebrities and the hand signs and all that, pointing up is a huge thing that they do. And it's... So Dr. Goodall pointed up. What I was talking to, saying, please don't let it rain on the whole afternoon today. I like her backpedaling here too. Did she say please don't let it rain? Or did she say please don't let it rain on the whole afternoon today? Because it sounds like it kept raining. It just was off and on raining. So I would imagine that she actually said please don't let it rain to whatever she was talking. The word what here is disturbing to me. What do you mean what I was talking to? You mean who I was talking to? Or a normal person, somebody who follows God would say God here. But these people, they want to be spiritual or be religious without giving anything to God. They'll say what I was talking to, or they'll just be mysterious about it and they won't tell you. In cases like that, like, I think that there's some people out there that they love to worship Lucifer or some other thing. And so when they don't come out and say, like, oh, I was talking to God, it's because they know that they were worshiping some evil entity, some demonic entity. And so they just leave it vague. I think that happens a lot, where people say my God, and it's like ambiguous who people are talking about. We're not supposed to be ambiguous. You're supposed to say that you believe in Jesus Christ, you're a follower of Jesus Christ, and God. I mean, that there's also wolves in sheep's clothing, so you always have to use discernment. There's even some obvious deceivers and wicked people that say that they follow Jesus. So even that's not enough to just hear people say that they follow Jesus. And that's part of why we need actions. That's part of why it's important that people bear fruit, because that's how you test spirits, is by, well, what kind of fruit does this tree bear? Anyways, people, very typical for the Blue Lodge academic types to be spiritual. They try to play both sides. They try to be spiritual but also deny God at any chance they can. Pointing up and saying what I was talking to is very bizarre to me. I'm basically done with this. How do you feel about being labeled an icon? And there's no humility here. There's no normal people. I keep saying like normal or thinking normal when I really mean a godly person. There's a way that godly people should act, and then there's ways that the world acts. When the world is idolized, they love it. They eat that stuff up. Godly people reject. If somebody tries to put you on a pedestal, you reject that. You say, I'm just a man. Stop. Do not do that. It's awkward for godly people to receive praise. And I'm not saying that you can't ever receive a compliment. It's obvious when you're being put on a pedestal versus people being nice and giving compliments. And the godly reaction to being put on a pedestal is to shut that down and to give glory to God. But these people, they roll with it. Hey, Jane Goodall, you're an icon. How does that feel? Well, talks about being touched, like it's an important thing, like they're Jesus or something. The media have created an icon, and here is just admitting that it's all an act. Here admitting that she's just an act, that there's two Jane Goodalls. There's the real person, and then there's the act that they put on. And that's the way that all of these people operate. All the world's a stage. Tool using. So a lot of the changes start out like this, though, with the resistance. The old guard wants to keep things the same way. Who's this young, handsome woman trying to shake things up? You know, the people who have been doing this for a while, they're like, hey, why do you come in and get to be the one to start talking about tool making? They always got to make it about just a girl. Yeah, right. Never wanted to be a scientist. Oh man, I'm sounding like Bill Nye the Science Guy vibes. She's got good legs. I don't know about that. All right. This was more like vaguely spiritualism stuff, so I'll just try to go through it really quick. It can sound kooky, I know, but things have happened in my life that look like coincidences, but I don't think they were. And I personally think every person comes into this world with a role to play. That's an interesting thing. As somebody who clearly is playing a role on the world stage, to talk like that is very interesting. There's too many coincidences, but it's up to you to say yes or no to these opportunities. So I agree with a lot of what this is saying, but Jane Goodall coming at it from this supposed to be you don't know. She's being too vague about it. Does Jane Goodall believe in God? And that just talking about pointing up, but then saying what I was talking to. So clearly not being forthcoming with talking about what their spiritual side is, but very, very, very common for even the most scientifically minded people on the world stage to talk about spiritual things. We get told that Darwin comes to Christ on his deathbed. We get told those kind of stories almost always. That is the case, where even the puppets that they use to push the most ball Earth evolution things, they almost always have some sort of story of coming to Christ or having some sort of spiritual aspect to it. So it's interesting that they are typically the ones spearheading the atheist movements, the people who worship nothing but pop science, and unfortunately get led exactly where they want you to be led. That's what I think. It's just so clear to me that that's the whole point of the education system, is to convince people that God is not real. Well, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. God bless everyone.